Recording in progress. Chris, you're up.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Sam. Thank you for everything you do for Poetry in Plain Sight. I really appreciate it. It's a great program. I'm glad to be a part of it. My poem is called A Defense of Poetry. Because the night sky has trillions of ways of whispering yes. Because a longleaf pine contains immeasurable silence. Because tulip is another way of saying now. Because the body has many rooms for joy. Because the daily bread we bless is instead blessing us. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bartholomew Barker.
Thanks, Sam. And thanks, Chris, for going first and having the A name instead of me. My poem is called Mulberries in the Piedmont. From the first snow melt until my coatless hike, I've walked under this tree without noticing its mulberries. I rushed to pluck the fruit, ripened purple over a warm night, plucked juicy morsels in my stained mouth, gambling on sweet against tart. A mother starling nags from overhead, so I leave a few for her hatchlings, a generosity I now regret. Mulberry season is precarious, and a man can't be held responsible in these perilous times. Thanks.
Very good. Let's see. Let me jump ahead for a moment. Joyce, I think I saw you on there somewhere. Are you going to read Les's poem? Joyce Brown? Okay.
Les is here.
Oh, Les is here? Okay.
Yeah, he's supposed to be, so he'll plan to read. Thank you.
Okay, I didn't hear back from him, so I don't think so, but that's good. All right. Jenny Bates, your turn. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
I have to unmute myself. Okay. Summer fractions. I'm telling the bees to raise their shield, grip tight in a dribbling world. Hope cracked as a beggar's upturned palm, flesh with fear. Stained glass window, lead line color, and a dragonfly's wing. Dreamers and skimmers, the beggar's scars read, heal every creature, every plant, every tree.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, let's see. Les Brown and Steve Cushman and Sandra Dreas will be our next three. So Les, it's all yours.
Okay, this is winter of 1951. My brown aviator cap was soft leather lined with rabbit fur. It had ear flaps that I lowered when the cold mountain wind cut through the wool toboggans my friends wore. It even had goggles, made me a man like my uncles who were flying over Korea. I pretended to fly and wore it until the heat of spring made me raise my flaps, until the seams wore out, before I began to see the real images of war through the scratched lenses.
Very nice, very nice.
Thank you.
All right, Steve.
All right, thanks, Sam. So my poem is called These Days. These days we walk slower, hand in hand. I miss my good knees, the miles I ran on blacktop, on country roads, through fields, always running, moving, covering distance, as if that would take me anywhere. When all I ever needed, I see now, is you right here. this home, our yard, my hand in yours on a Sunday afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you. Sandra Dreas. You're muted. You're muted.
Got it? How's that? Better?
Better.
Thank you. My poem is called Bad Stars. I don't want to think about your brain, but I do. I must. Starfish invade our brackish tide pool. They bear spikes, shells, cells shaped like stars, and a plastic astrocytoma. Surgeon's referral, neuro-oncology, 17th floor, wrong way. Do not enter, but we do. We must. Doctors' voices float. Inoperable. There's no shape to a prognosis. 18 months. Brain stars. 33 years to lose their genetic way. A soulmate's pilfered prayers. Any chance to find Polaris. Thank you.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. Let's see. Joanne Durham will be next. Christina Erickson, then, and Priscilla Frake. So Joanne, all yours.
Thank you. My poem is called Cake. We call it apple cake or apple chocolate, sometimes blueberry apple chocolate. No recipe, just the notion not to waste 4 egg whites left over from making pasta. Loose and steaming as we barely let it cool, we'd devour it all at once, except we've learned, belying expectations, tomorrow the flavors will seep deep into one another, congeal, like us, beyond naming. And long before it can turn stale, we'll savor every crumb.
Very nice. Very nice. Christina Erickson.
Summer thunder. Find me gently in the silence of the night as owls begin their hoot. Stars collecting wishes magnifies our moon. Summer thunder tenderly rolls me under. Kisses like raindrops, lightning photographs the sky beneath a silken sheet, till dreamland softly lays us together in our sleep.
Thank you. Priscilla Frake.
My poem is called Atlas. I keep my family in order like planets in their orbits. I balance the roof of the house on one shoulder and the sky on another. I parcel out the hours and days. Each chore gets its share. I nod at the clouds to move along, please. There is no moment or movement unaccounted for. Mine is not an iron fist, but an iron hand, scrubbing, stirring, pulling weeds. A job I never meant to take up and cannot put down because no one would take my place.
Very nice. All right, the next 3 readers will be Michael Gaspany, John Hall, and Mimi Herman. So, Mr. Gaspany, you're muted. You're muted, Mike. Oh, no. Michael, you're muted.
Got it. I'm sorry. I was trying to unmute myself, but I failed.
That's all right. That's all right.
Little Gods. Blue Ridge Lodge, April 1. Maples rock at dawn, buds burst, while others crown, urged on, each splitting sheath different. If blossoms were uniform, limbs struck the same pose, and spring came with the flick of a switch, would we heal in forests of candelabra? Yet back home, we bask in smiles lighting similar faces, parishioners whisking in for family worship, a wink before the organ blasts.
Thank you. John, Hall, you're up.
First, I want to check in. People hear me. It's a new microphone.
I hear you.
You're, all right. Mine is called Her Mask of Years. Mom flew into Greensboro like a timid bird, hunched under dark feathers. The next morning, fear washed from her eyes. I saw Mom again, the woman who drove 2,000 miles to build a life off that damned farm. One Volkswagen Bug, $50, and her firstborn. I see my mom without mask. She adores week-long road trips to celebrate her birthdays. Like an egret in a pond, staring down a hurricane's wet green cloud curtain of rage. Like white wings rise up and away. Thank you.
Thank you. Mimi Herman.
Thanks, Sam. How to say no. Practice it plain, unadorned, and completely unmourned. Not no thank you or I'm sorry, but no. But no, as it is. No sugar to sweeten it, no cream to soften it. Take it hot and take it black, but whatever you do, don't take it back.
Very nice, very nice. All right, John Hoppenthaler, Karen Jackson, and let's see, Emily Jager. So, John, you can correct my pronunciation of your name if you would like.
It's Hoppenthaler.
Yeah.
The weather down here, Washington, North Carolina. A quick stop at Food Lion for beer and whole wheat buns, then Hog Heaven for pints of barbecue, baked beans and slaw. Idling in the takeout lane, I'm taken by gangrenous clouds closing fast from the east. In Beaufort County, storms are upon us in minutes. Roiling cells shear through the skillet flat fields of tobacco and cotton. In lightning's flicker, the family plots of farmers appear visited by God. They startle me like you do, dear, like cumulonimbus on the horizon. Come gather after, slip your hand into my pocket and kiss my sunburned neck. Recite with me again the capricious nature of our Carolina weather. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you. Karen Jackson. Let's see, is Karen here? I will circle back for Karen. Emily Jager.
Hey, this poem is called Lycan. The first guest after the avalanche, part decay, part pond plant, familiar with still growing your green glue at a rate of centimeters per century, but enough. Chartreuse pecking rocks into dirt, dirt into rocks again. You green letter, you tuft of sun, collapsed telescope, you tumbleweed, mole, puckered wormhole. Your only job is to hold the ground in place.
That's a handsome collaborator you've got there. All right, let's see. Next three will be Joan Leota, Joe Mills, and Ruth Moose. So Let's
Okay.
see, Joan.
I'm
how about-
ready.
Go ahead.
Quilt. Sitting on my couch, I snuggle under a quilt made from grandma's coats. Each square is cut from a day we went out together to shop, to lunch, or church. I would lean against her in car, streetcar, or taxi when I was weary of it all. Grandma would hug me, pull me close, my cheek against each season's coat, comforting me. Now each square is a pathway back to childhood, when my cheek on grandma's coat could quiet the discord of a too busy world. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Mills.
Rehearsal. When they enter the studio, the dancers drop their bags by the wall mirrors. So as they stretch, it looks as if they're lying among their possessions. Then their bodies rise above the keys and coats, phones and packs, and they become disencumbered, all that tethers them, gravity and reflection.
Thank you. Let's see, Ruth Moose. I know she's here.
Pass.
You're up, Ruth. Ruth, go ahead. Am I coming through?
I think she said pass.
Pass. Oh, I'm sorry. Laura Mullen, Valerie Neiman, and Danny Powell are the next three. So Laura Mullen.
Thank you. My poem is called Home. Home. When you enter the room, you destroy the room. The room you waited so long to enter, no, to get into, to be allowed to enter, and so on. A nod to Kafka, existentialism, theories of desire, blah, blah, blah. You're talking to yourself now. When you enter, too late, too early, over or underdressed, etc., the room explodes? No. Is missing? Almost. No, but no, maybe dissolves, becoming the room you could get into. Welcome.
Oh, very nice. Valerie Neiman. I'll circle back to her. Let's see, sorry, Danny Powell.
This is called the Methodist church bells. The Methodist church bells toll out each hour over our neighborhood, reviving the old hymns one by one, each note a small globe of grace. I halt my digging to listen as they sail over my white fence and into my backyard, shaggy as it sometimes is, touching down on the phlox, my weary hydrangea, my lowly purple petunias in the big clay pot. Too soon the sounds recede, swimming the air for home, leaving me to my dirt, my shovel, my small belfry of dreams.
I like that. Okay, David Radovich, Tim Rodriguez, and Linda Thompson, if she's here. She may be running a little bit late today, she says. So if not her, it will be Lucinda True. So, David?
Yes, my poem is called Sun Lover. And if you hear a slight undertow of eroticism, well, I leave that to you. Sun lover, you are a tonic to the mind and body. Even far away, occluded by clouds, visited by chores no one cares about. Just the thought of you enlivens the air. A quick breeze that bends flowers, lifts the skins of rivers, and makes the ground ever so slightly swell.
Very nice. Tim Rodriguez.
Sugar maple. The fall fire rests hard upon you, slipping orange to yellow, embers propelling down to where dark sparks aspire to a wicking, soon to end ashen. In the sanctity of the fall umbra, my stick-struck flame teases, then tears, roars high to embrace with a passion that leaves no waste or trace of any color or dolor. In the end, all is a bare and a dog-eared sigh of a breeze channeling through it.
Thank you. Melinda, are you here yet? I don't see her anywhere. Okay, well, we'll press on here. Lucinda True.
Thank you. This is called Sunday Morning Figs. When neighbors have left for church, when the whine of yard work takes a rest, when the day in all its promise has just begun to color round the edges, and the leaf in sun filigree of Mary's fig tree shines, pink ripe, a sunny blush of benevolence, offering shelter and open bar to orioles and waxwings, yellow jackets overcome, and a trio of deer made tipsy and broad daylight brazen by the honeyed syrup of late summer fruit that has swollen, split, and spilled its grace to ground.
Thank you. The next three readers, Eric Whale, Kathy Weisfield, and Catherine Wolf. So Eric, proceed.
The rider. Left boot in its stirrup, the rider launches herself onto the bay gelding's back, pats his neck, ponytail peeking from the helmet. They begin their journey through a world of obstacles, her hands and knees guiding the gleaming bay, who turns when the rider turns her head, swells like a wave over each painted rail, pounds dirt. As they pivot to face the final set of jumps, she risks another neck pat before leaping toward her vision of the rider she will become.
Nice. Kathy Weisfield. You can correct me.
Weisfeld, thank you. Energy field after Alan Watts. If a flower had a god, would it be a huge blossom in the sky, dropping petals and pollen to propagate the earth, a quintessential fragrance, an idealized image, the most vibrant hue to which every flower aspires? Would it stand in a field, feel through its roots a pattern of existence, discovering the exaltation of the whole field?
Thank you. Catherine Wolf and Nancy, you'll be our last reader, I think. We'll circle back for some, but Catherine Wolf. Let's see. Is Catherine here? All right.
I'm sorry. I'm here, but
okay, I'm sorry. Please
here
proceed.
I am. Okay.
Please read.
Okay, the girl with the amethyst ring. I miss the girl with the amethyst ring who slept in the room at the far end of our house in the woods, a room with high windows often visited by the pileated woodpecker. When I heard her scream the first morning he appeared, I bolted to her and said, "You are safe here, nothing to fear." She smiled and lay back down and slept in that room another year before her new love took her away.
Nice. And last but certainly not least, Nancy Martin Young.
Thanks, Sam. I think the last time I read a nature poem for the North Carolina Poetry Society was the one about dating Bigfoot. This is indeed. My initials, name, and payment prove I own it. This steep hill thick with laurel, pine, and logs. Covenants say I may float a dock, let it stretch in murky mirrored water beyond the sandy bank. I can cut the beaches that block the view and pave a path to water's edge, build a fence, guard what's mine, but was not mine until I signed and paid. The deed is done, the acres owned, but mine in trust, a burden or delight. Whitetail and black bear tread here, bass and muskie dart about the dock brackets. The Blue Ridge wedges into the horizon, and a lone eagle claims the sky. Such land is for tending. The owner is the plot.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to circle back on all the connections here. Hannah Ringler, I didn't get the word that you were going to read. I'm glad you were able to join us. Go ahead.
Sorry, the whole baby thing, I've missed a lot of emails.
Okay.
Potter Gardener, dig your hands into the dull red clay. Let the water run over you, glaze you, and burnish you. Worship it, the slow eons and the long turnings, the grind of the earth as it gyres, milling the minerals smooth. Knead it, grains suppling as it binds the water, draping these outstretched fingers, fluid, impassive, serene. Shape it, consider form, study want, and what your own hands have in them to build, what the good earth is and still could be.
Well, I'm so glad we got to hear that. Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone that has joined in that I have missed? You know, please.
I think Deborah Kaufman wanted to read.
Okay.
Hi.
Deborah, go ahead.
Hi, Sam. Yeah, I missed the email too. I didn't know there was one. So thank you for adding me. This is called Cohen. Sift life, I thought she said, just before we hung up. We'd been talking about discernment and dying. All week I considered her words, tried to sieve my worries, wash any nuggets clean. Notice how every grain observed might glisten. Next time we talked, I asked what she'd meant. Did I say that? She laughed. I have no idea. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think, did Melinda Thompson check in yet? Or Valerie Neiman? Or Karen Jackson? Okay, then. Well, thank you all for sharing your poems with us. What the best way I've discovered to start a Saturday morning.
Sam?
Yes.
This is Ed Garvey. I apologize. I was trying to get unmuted. I thought I have one poem to read.
Yes, please.
Thanks. The poem is called Spring. How many years have you set a poem, a gate to spring, quietly, somewhere within my life, hidden like the gate of spring, which swings so quick, so true. This world, this vow of color does swing quickly into bloom. One day not, the next day, yes. Brilliant white petals on a still pond. Truth holds its gate open. Winter's fence, overwhelmed in green. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, let's see. Maybe the other readers will come in for the open mic, hopefully. Celestine, how would you like to proceed? Or Bill, are you running things and when she's away?
Celestine is muted.
Celestine?
Yeah, I am. Thank you so much, Karen. I was just talking. Oh, since someone just entered the room, I don't know if there's someone who it's a phone number. If 1919553 is Pip's reader, Pip's poet, please unmute and speak.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I'm good, but I couldn't remember everybody's phone number.
That's why I said it so that they can hear me. So.
Sam?
Yes?
I'm wondering if you could tell us how the program works and how to submit a poem and all like that.
Well, obviously there's 48 people who know that. And the thing is, we have an annual contest, annual call, and we take poems usually in the summer. And after that, we use judges from, independent judges, hopefully 3 every year. And then they decide, take several months and go through them. And you turn them over to me and I make the announcements. David puts them on the website. Kashiya puts them in the newsletter, and then hopefully we have a reading. I've been doing this since 2013 when we first got started. And we used to try to have a reading quarterly, in Winston-Salem, which was just unreasonable for, people who live on the coast. And we thought it would be, and Zoom just afforded us the opportunity to have everybody read one day. And I would encourage all of you, if you know one another, if you have geographically, if you're close, I think you could host a reading in a venue near you. And I think I'll do everything I can to help promote it. I think I'm in the process of printing the April and May poems now that'll be sent to the Wilmington, Greenville, Greensboro, and here in Winston-Salem. And we'll get those up and running. Yes, Kathy? Oh, in Burnsville, sorry. Yeah. Where's Pat? She should be here. But yes, Burnsville. And hopefully we can grow that a little bit more. I mean, we've got funds to print more posters. And if you can, if you'd like to take it on, it's more than a 1-month commitment. Yeah, we'd like for you to be able to do it for a year. And sometimes that's just not reasonable, just won't work out. But we can talk. If there's some things you'd like to do in your town, I'll do all I can. Poetry Society will do all it can to support you.
Definitely will. Absolutely. Support anyone who wants to step up and do that in your region, area. We will definitely promote it and do everything we can to support you. So just keep that in your head. Maybe someone who's not even in the meeting now who couldn't come today but might be interested. Make sure you spread the word about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you all have my email. And, just contact me individually if there's anything that we can work together. And also, I want to remind you of all the poems and people who aren't readers, that we have a vintage, about 900 vintage poems from throughout the program through the years, and they're for sale. And we will probably, they may find a new home at Weymouth once we get up and running back in face-to-face meetings for different programs. So that'll be nice. And anybody have any other questions? Okay, I encourage.
It was wonderful. It was a wonderful. I really enjoyed all the readings. You guys were so great. I wish we could hear all your applause if it was in, face to face. But believe me, everybody was applauding you and enjoying your work. And talking about what's going up, make sure that you, most of you may know, we're in our 90th anniversary for the North Carolina Portrait Society. So we're doing a lot of special programming. So please, come back and see what we're doing. We're trying to keep you abreast, not only with the e-news, but we try to keep things posted on Facebook, and we're going to be, extending our publicity to make sure you keep in touch with what we're doing. Beyond, Linda, which is our VP of Programming, has a lot of wonderful things planned for us. And also, we're also looking for input from you guys, to support you in your area, because we know that things are opening up and people want to meet. And maybe you're already meeting. So if anything we can do to support you, please let us know. And especially if you have books that are coming out, we like to promote you in the e-news. So just really understand that we're here to support you, and not just, that's what our goal is, to support all the poets in North Carolina. So make sure you just reach out to any of the board members or email us or whatever way you need to contact us. Again, I want to thank Sam for all the hard work he's done. He's really, I think, made this into I think it's going to be a really an important part of our outreach with PIPS. And that's how I see this is a continuing process. And I think he has done a wonderful job. So I know we have, you have, I talk about it all the time, but now it's like 10:48. It's a little, we actually ended a little earlier than we thought we would.
Celestine, can I make an announcement?
Absolutely.
This is David Radovich. I'm the webmaster, and I just wanted to let everyone know that Ashley Lumpkin, who is our adult contest chair, has given me the winners of the adult contest this year, and they're now posted on the website. So you can go to the homepage and click on the link and read all of the winners of this year's adult contest. And of course, they will be reading in May.
Thank you.
Are we going to meet at Weymouth in May?
No.
Okay.
Unfortunately not, but we do plan to be there in September. And look also Linda's planned some workshops. We're going to have an April workshop follow up to today's workshop with Lavonne Adams. So look for that too. Okay. So again, we might want to start with open mic. That might be a way to start. We have a longer open mic today, and our moderator for open mic today is going to be none other than the infamous Karen Stewart.
Fingers crossed on this process, people. Okay, so open mic, yeehaw. All right, so let's try this today. You guys, I've never hosted an open mic on Zoom, so bear with me. So I'm thinking it might be great if everybody could look near the bottoms of their screen and find a thing that says reactions. And if you want to read, click that reactions button. There should be something that says raise hand, and it will make a little cartoon hand. Oh, joy. Oh, people are figuring it out. You guys are so smart. If you want to read, raise that hand And then I'm going to be zooming through all the Zoom pictures. It'll be totally random. There's no organization to this. I'll just call on you, and then you can say a couple words about your poem. We don't need your life history, although I'm sure it's very interesting. And then read your poem, and then go back to that reactions and unraise your hand, or else I'm going to be calling on you again. So it does. And if anybody has any questions about that, you can unmute yourself quickly and just yell at me, or try the chat thing. But I got a whole lot of things going on my screen here, so we'll just see how this goes. So first up, I think Joyce Brown was really quick with the raise hand. So I'm going to call on you, Joyce. And you can just unmute yourself, and then here we go.
Okay. I didn't mean to be first. I was just so proud that I actually found the right button. David can vouch for my problems sometimes. My poem that I wanted to share with you is, as so typical of me, a poem about past. I guess down in it, it's a poem about my mother and maybe women in general. It's called Ceremonial. When George gave Martha her fine nuptial bedspread, pure white linen, my mothers were stuffing corn shucks and straw into sackcloth and rough cotton, some still sleeping on bundled rags, still seeking home. Some were singing of linens and love's betrayal. How do you like your snow white linen? How do you like your sheet? How do you like that fair young bride laying in your arms asleep? Because even broken-hearted death was better in a high hall with soft, clean pillows and sheets than in a straw-stuffed bed in a dark cabin. Our mothers had sung those distant tales, heard of kingly brocades for royal births. They knew of fine wove muslin, knew the dream of steady home and hope. No wonder women nodded, tuft their own beauties, or settled for plain sewn until factory democratized the bedspread and covered all those layers barricading from nighttime chill with purity of tough white cotton and then chenille, like the one my mother called counterpane after the way of her mother, which she washed and hung to dry. It hung so white and thin and worn, you'd think it was witch spun. She'd cover that iron bed we slept in, as chill as a sledge of Procustes, spread it over layers of worn stitch stories from that other life. Smooth, white, clean, resurfacing of the bed, always the morning ritual, the emblem of life's order, survival out of chaos, always until that last morning, the blessed sign that she would live another day. I apologize. I didn't realize that was going to be so long. Okay.
That was fun, Joyce. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good, getting us off to a good start. That being said, if you all have 1 page or less poems to share, awesome. Joyce got us started off with a good long one, so we're going to keep on rolling. Next up, I am seeing David Radovich.
Okay. I don't know about you, but I've been very distressed about the war in Ukraine, and I've written a number of poems about it. I wanted to read one today. This one is called What I Would Like. To walk the streets of Moscow, perhaps dressed in a robe, perhaps in t-shirt and jeans and long warm coat, carrying a big cross, with a face that spells repent, God save us all, but saying nothing, just walking quietly with resolve. And maybe a crowd will gather behind me, silently, with a firm step, growing ever larger and more peaceful, past the policemen and the domed churches and trees naked of leaves, into the sunset, where the dead are silently buried.
Thank you so much, David. I'm going to refrain from making comments because y'all don't need to know what I thought about everybody's poem, but so thank you. Next up, and just a reminder, when you finish reading, if you can unraise your hand by clicking the reactions button and remute yourself. Next up, I am seeing, okay, I'm going to do my best on pronouncing it. Kashiya Williams.
That's exactly right. Thank you. All right. Okay. So I have a short one. And forgive me, I have not read or written in a very long time. But this one is called Introspect or Sagittarius. All right. I searched for you, and you are a match, lit, suspended in the heart of Sagittarius. How was I to know to look there? Besides, you left me. Do you remember where? I do, in the garden, amongst trees that I did not plant, amongst fruit that I did not bear. Yes, you left me, and I searched for you. You swept through tribes and nations, leaving your scent in the wake. I looked for clues. I sought the counsel of warlords and leaders, the wisdom of peacemakers and teachers, but they barely remembered your presence, the details of their accounts similar, but sketchy. You had gone from them. Yet I searched for you. I became tired, my legs weak and trembling from the journey. I sat just to rest. You left me and you did not want to be found. I sat there resting, eyes closed, palms down, a deep sigh of utter defeat. Then behind my eyelids, I found truth. A little deeper, palms up, I found you, hidden within the heart of a Sagittarius.
Thank you, Kashiya. All right. Next up, it's nice that you guys are moving around on my screen. So I'm just, whoever's popping up is who I'm calling on. So I see Jenny Bates. Jenny?
Thank you. This poem was just put up this morning by Silver Birch Press, so it's on their website. It's in the How to Heal the Earth series. Faltering Vespers. On the third day without power, they came to roost by the house. They're here for me, I shivered. Kept a close eye as they circled, landed in the yard. Someone died in the freak storm. It was not me. As the vulture spread its wings, shrouding, hiding the dead, I fell in love with that embrace. Later that night, and before expected, the power came back on. The world had not ended. I will return, just like the trees and the birds, the cold clasp of sound wind gone, sunlight and housebound vibration sing our evening vespers once again. Tide of the forest flows forward, the vulture's frosty breath rises, sotto voce. Humans don't own the earth, yet I hope we have a lovely, long summer together.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you. All right, next up, I am seeing Susan Spalt.
Thank you. This is the prologue to a very long poem. I've never written a long poem before now. It's the saga of the pandemic when we were in Seattle with our grandchildren, so our daughter and son-in-law could work. And it's the pandemic diaries. And this is the prologue. February 2020, a warning from Italy. No carnival, no feste, no travel from north to south. Cities and towns locked down. The hospitals are full. The morgues are full. Quarantined from the Italian 40. Surely this won't last that long. Italy is no stranger to disaster, to survival. The Italiani on dark days teach their children to paint rainbows on doors, windows, fences with the slogan, Tutto andrà bene, everything will be all right. And they all sing the old song of hope and resistance from their balconies. The words float over the empty streets like a prayer. Ciao, Bella, Bella, ciao, ciao, ciao. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. So I'll just mention again, since I'm letting somebody else in. We're having people constantly joining us. So I'm just going to let everybody know what's going on. Somehow I ended up hosting open mic today, and that's what we're in the midst of. And the way this is working is if you would like to read a poem of a page or less, if you can do that, then you'll use the reactions button at the bottom of your screen. If you'll press on that, there should be an image of a raised hand, and you hit that, and then a little hand is going to appear on your screen. And at some point you'll pop up on my screen and I'll call on you, and you unmute yourself and read your poem and then mute yourself again. So there we go. Next up, I am seeing Bill Griffin.
Thanks, Karen. So thinking about this poem, years ago when we were still meeting in person at Weymouth, one night, I had this long debate with another poet, and kind of fueled by frequently refilled glasses probably. And her premise was all poetry is about love. And my premise was all poetry is about death. And I'm still not sure which of us was right. So this is Chasing Color, Soon to Fade. One leaf falls. Prophets weigh in, too dry, too wet, woolly worm, more brown than black, record low last night on Klingman's Dome, all just to say, get into your car next weekend for color. And all I say is October 11th, 10 a.m., sun has found one spray of hickory, burned cocoa and caramel, backlit green, luminous and hanging on to summer, air unmoving, but one leaf falls. The least breeze may rattle down a congregation, next week conflagration, but this morning we're hanging, holding back gold that falls, silver that leaves silence, cold, darkness, failed metaphor. Trees don't die each fall, and some spring, if we are indeed reborn, it won't be into a world lit up by chlorophyll or burning with xanthans, but on fire, some stronger light we finally quit running from, no more ignore, becoming as we and all things are, a piece of the truth that remarks when one leaf falls. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. All right, next up, I am seeing Les Brown. Les?
Okay, this is from my chapbook. It's called Plowing. Hambone needed someone to plow his rocky garden since AG had gone to Vietnam, leaving his father and Dory to worry and keep on living. So I drove Dad's farm-all cub 4 miles up the highway to the burned over stubble plot. Because I wore thick glasses and couldn't go and could only see the world like a flat photo, I stayed behind while my classmates flew planes hundreds of miles and dropped bombs that scorched and ripped open the earth of worried fathers and mothers. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. Thank you. All right, next up, I am seeing Joan Barasovska.
Hello. Thanks for doing this, Karen. Origami. Folding paper to make a fan, I am reminded of poetry. With practiced hand, I smooth crisp lines by memory. There are trickier feats I know: dragon, butterfly, crane. But today my page becomes a sea of piling waves, plumbed for rhyme, light as dew.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you. All right, next up, I am seeing Darcy. And Darcy, if you look in the bottom left of your screen, there you go, you're unmuted.
Yes. Good morning, poets. I'm a new voice. This is the 7th iteration of this poem, Shapes of Winter. Shape, like cape. Shapes of Winter. Human burrito wrapped in wool. Kittens curled in fleece corners. Early nights in plaid flannel gowns. Armchair traveler, book by book. Darkness descended at tea time. Bearings lost in the wee small hours. Dreams shredded by a furry alarm. First light, we greet a frosty vista. Cold fingers dance on my spine while a fox crosses the road. Red holly berries on display jumpstart my mood elevator. Joan smiling.
Thank you, Darcy. And welcome to your first Zoom meeting with us. I think I'm right about that. Am I right? Second one. All right. Very good. Thank you for joining us and sharing today. So next up we have Hannah Ringler. It looks like the baby's ready for you to share with us.
We'll see. He may add some sound effects. He is very musical. So I'm on a Facebook group for gardeners, and last year someone asked in all seriousness what they should do about the bluets in their lawn, which I thought was the strangest question I've ever heard. So this poem is called Bluets. What should I do about the bluets? Marvel? Glory? Here spreads the blue vastness in the gray months. Here arcs of stem and curled, ruffled leaves collar sturdily this breath of flower. Here catches the rain and sends it up again. Here is the bee's first food. Here is the green of June. Here is the gift the new sun brings. Here is the sky in pieces at your feet. Touch them. Look down. Look up.
Thank you so much, Hannah and baby. Thank you. All right, next up, I am seeing Nancy Martin Young.
Thanks. I dug out an old seasonal one. It's tongue in cheek. Ill wind. Wind chimes in March fray nerves, irritate neighbors, murder sleep, scare birds. The drafty racket duped romantics, doping Shelley, who split a case of Aeolian harp with Coleridge, quaffing corresponding breeze for inspiration. Chopin tickled ivories as he pleased and sprinkled aggravating grace notes in an etude. When ill winds transcendentally billowed, Emerson huffed messages from his oversoul. Oh, Aeolian harp, forswear your lofty airs. Your bougie name can't hide you're like a snare strung and hung out to play with nature. Thy shrill discords make teeth ache, lines droop. How tedious are the long, sequacious notes burped from a windbag, who lounges with lyre in a castle of indolence. Worse, the wifty breaths of a passel of butterfly poets, light in sound, weak in intent. Common sense needs no still instrument. If reality is less halcyon than gravelly, soft sounds make a lyre of the roadkill poet.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. And we continue to have people joining in with us. So I'll just explain again that we are doing our open mic portion of the day. And the way that this is working is if you'd like to share a poem of hopefully 1 page or less, you can click on the reactions button near the bottom of your screen, find the icon that says raise hand and click on that. A little hand will appear on your screen, and randomly I will call on your name and you'll unmute yourself and then share your poem. And then when you're finished, remute yourself by clicking on the little picture of a microphone, I think in the bottom left side of your screen. And if you've read already and you see when you look at yourself that there is still a hand up near your head, you can go to that reactions and unraise your hand. So here we go. Next up, I am seeing Jan's iPad.
Hi, I'm Jan Comfort. I'm brand new as of 2 days ago. So I appreciate the opportunity. This is called Life Support. The ocean is vast in stark contrast to the still, dark pond where we gather. Pebbles skipped across its surface cause ripples like waves until the once smooth surface is overcome by the chaos of their interlocking. We sit together in silence, not using our prodigious collection of words, but our hearts to express our support. One by one we depart to come back together the next day and the next with a fresh outlook, a new page, a palimpsest once marked by doubt and fear, and now by courage. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you for joining us at the Poetry Society. So welcome to your first gathering or I hope you're enjoying yourself. I'm enjoying myself, and I don't want to do the thing where I act like I'm the finale, but I do want to share a poem today. So I'm going to insert myself here. This is, you guys always have to write about moons and dawns and all that stuff. So no surprises here. This is Into Me. After a day and a night of weather's bluster and the new whining of the freezer in the kitchen and the growling of the heater in the studio and the grumbling of the whole house water softener cycling after midnight, the sheets were silent and warm. And a simple shifting of my body undercovers moved me from darkness to the coming on of new day and new breath. And I held on to these moments with closed lids, delighting in basking in the hatching of new day, of new light. And I bathed in the joy of this dawning, of this opening up as I opened my eyes, opened up to the brilliant, bright glory of this ball of orange light rising up, spreading out, filling in the empty spaces from horizon into woods, into windows, into me. Thanks, Karen. Oh, you're welcome.
You're wonderful, Karen. Thank you so much. That was so wonderful. I really enjoyed that. Yay.
Thank you, Celestine.
I also want to interrupt your wonderful hosting because we have just for a blip of a moment, we have one of our PIPS poets here who just was running a little late. And so I want to give her opportunity to read her poem. And then she also can, can do something else that she likes, but definitely read her PIPS poem. Okay.
Fabulous. Thank you.
What we have is the fabulous Miss Melinda Thompson. Take it away.
Thank you, and I'm so sorry for being late this morning, but so this is and thank you to Sam Barbee for I'll watch the video of this morning's reading. This is called Finding a Book You Love. Finding a book you love. On the last page, if your tears well up, then stream down and fall from your jaw, so you keep wiping them off with your hand. You know loneliness and gratitude just collided. Thank you.
That was fabulous.
Thank you, Melinda. That was wonderful. Now, was that your PIPS poem?
Yeah, that was a PIPS.
That was fabulous. And are you going to share with us for open mic also?
No, I can read it again.
Okay, well,
I'm sorry.
If we need time, then we'll do that. Not to put you on the spot. That was great. Thank you. Next up then, I see that we have Kashiya Williams.
Hi. Okay, so I'm going to read a poem from my upcoming chapbook, Finding Her, which will be out through Finishing Line Press in August, but my pre-sale starts exactly 1 month from today. So this is titled, For the Maladjusted Gardener Who Would Be Culled by Her Own Brown Thumb. Sitting at the start of a sandy path, flanked by lush greenery, I hear your fingers digging as I listen to you pray to a God you've said you don't believe in, for a sinkhole deep enough to stop a heart at its core. My screams reverberate, wet with marrow. I am still here as ripe red roses bloom out of my chest, climb skyward arms, and anchor themselves to extended legs. My being is now a pergola built to bear the brunt of you. I watch the earth open up and swallow you whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Kashiya. Thank you. All right, we're making really good time. So I'm just going to plant this seed. I haven't okayed this with anybody who's actually in charge, Celestine, but just in case we have some extra time before lunch, perhaps some people in attendance might have other poems they would like to share, but don't raise your hand yet. I'm just planting that seed. If you want to rustle around, we may have time to share more than one poem. Who knows? It's kind of a free-for-all. That's how we roll. Okay, so next up we have, I am seeing Sam Barbee.
Okay, you asked for it. Melinda, I'm so glad you were able to come. This is one that appears in the Flying South, which is a Winston-Salem Writers Anthology this year. And this answers Bill's hypotheses of poetry is life and poetry is death. Hands to myself. Hands make us human, Aristotle. Our kitchen where your aprons droop. I stir the strings, snag the loops. They help me still witness you. Blue fantasia, true faith in aloneness, in violet depth. Flocks blot, sun's final lap, help prepare tonight's profile, a nudge into our past. I smooth the mattress, but cannot make it moan. I grasp the closet door to curate clothes, dreaming of usefulness. Clutter of robes, fashions arranged per seasons, the inappropriate shoved back, idle in the tidy dark. Old permissions cross my anxious palm. I clench basic routines at your grave, pretend to sift fingers through your hair, iron your lace across the headstone, press so delicately, hands not yet learned how to keep you real. A startling departure of some stupid birds, they're flying, always in human terms. And thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you. All right, next up, I am seeing Iris. And Iris, you are still muted. And now you're not.
Hi, Karen, you're doing a great job. Thank you. A short comment on a short poem. I wrote this many years ago when I was at a conference and met Robert Bly. And he talked about writing morning poems with William Stafford. And this is a thank you to Robert Bly. Bob Bly and Bill Stafford write a poem every morning. If Bob Bly can do it, so can I. I try. Bob asked Bill, what if it's no good? Bill says he lowers his standards. If Bob Bly can lower his standards, so can I. I sigh. Bill Stafford is now in heaven writing his poems. Bob Bly is still writing here on earth. If Bob Bly isn't ready to die, neither am I. I cry. Bob Bly says if his poems are good, he'll publish them. If Bob Bly can publish his poems without asking why, so can I. I fly. Thank you. It was a fun poem.
Thank you, Iris. Thank you. Next up, I see Catherine Wolf.
Okay, I will unmute myself. Just a second. My father's gift, a memory, 1950. In my hand, I hold a black metal lunchbox with a rounded top for a thermos of hot coffee. In front of me, linotype machines, floor to ceiling, spew hot metal words. At one machine, my father sits, fingers on the keyboard, moving like a maestro composing a symphony, fingers that a few years before held a gun in the last of the world wars. He sits now at peace, setting type for tomorrow's newspaper, a trade he learned as a boy from his father. I, anxious to leave the heat and noise, quickly hand the lunchbox to him, but he stops, wants to talk, reward me for my long walk up the steps to the composing room. Reward me with a line of type, my full name in molten metal. While the type cools, he talks of his labor union and shows me his card with pride. In my hand, I hold the type set by his hands, his gift that still remains with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. All right, next up, I spy with my little eye, E.P. Garvey.
Thanks, Karen. My first name's Ed. Very short poem, a triplet of triplets, a triplet of haikus. It's called Sunflower after Van Gogh. A calling of yellows bound within an equally yellow vessel of gratitude. The layering of heavy seed heads, one on top the other, as if in a field barely held by a fence. Each flower longing to see, each longing to be seen. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you. All right, next up, I see Sandra Dreis. Did I pronounce that right? I know you said it earlier.
It's Dreis.
Dreis. Sandra Dreis.
Yes, Dreis. Yes, yes, I know. It's a hard one. This is sort of a new poem, Grandpa Poppy. Grandpa Poppy arrives chewing on a cigar. Dad's dad. He downs a jigger of whiskey without touching the glass. Makes me laugh. He asks me what I want for my 5th birthday, and I tell him, a dog. What color, he asks. White, brown, and black. Can't have a real dog. My brother's allergic. A stuffed animal has to do. Dog barking. A day later, Grandpa returns. I'm sorry. Something is happening. I may have to continue in a minute. Someone has come to my door. There's a Jack Russell hysteria.
Sandra, I will let you off the hook and let's try again when you deal with your door and the dog. How about that?
Thank you very much.
Okay. I actually thought that was really great ambiance she had for her poem with the dog coming in. Okay, so next up, I am seeing Joanne Durham.
Thank you. I'd like to read a short poem from my book that's just out, To Drink from a Wider Bowl. This poem won an honorable mention last year from the Poetry Society and the Lena Shull Book Award. And so that kind of encouraged me to keep going, and I enlisted the help of Danny Powell to tighten it up. And then it won the Sinclair Prize from Evening Street Press, so it's now out. And I was really moved today by some of the young poets who were here with children. And so it made me want to read a poem about about having a young child. It's called Under Construction. Excuse me. Loader, excavator, backhoe, creaking toy wheels across the couch's cushions. My 2-year-old teaches me the vocabulary of construction. He drums the sofa's arm to a beat in his head, abandons it to circle himself dizzy, tips the pink teapot so imaginary tea gurgles into the cup. His laughter curls like steam. Polka-dotted apron sweeping his ankles, brow creased, he steers the wooden spoon to chase clouds of flour inside the bowl, plops sticky biscuits into the pan. No one has lined him up yet. Boys on one side, girls on the other. Fragments of light twist through his cardboard kaleidoscope, spinning images of everything he could become. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, I have a message for you in your chat, please.
Oh, is that Celestine? Okay. I will check that out. Oh, I see that. No, I did not. Oh, thank you, Celestine. I'm going to come back to Sandra in a few minutes. Meanwhile, I see John Howe. I didn't pronounce that correctly. Tell us, John.
It's haw in the US and hawk in Ireland, so it's not.
So I missed it in both countries. Okay.
Thank you. So I'm gonna read one that was, it's called On the Second Morning of a New Year. In the new place, bad patch paint from the security system, a small bird, feathers puffed out plump against last night's snow, small streaks of blue and yellow, a nut in its beak. A second bird and third join hop on my new deck, and its railing scatters shells. I grabbed the teal Instamatic camera Hannah gave me, the one with, quote, only use if wholly in the moment, written in Sharpie. I take the second photo. I turn from my new window, warm tea in hand, hit the shower after entering an online order for a new bird feeder, just not from Amazon. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you. All right, next up, I see Laura Younger.
Hello, everyone. I was on pins and needles there for a while. I'm going to read a poem that I wrote in reaction to our withdrawal from Afghanistan last year, and it's going to appear in this upcoming issue of Artemis Journal out of Southwest Virginia. It's called Sequel. The Ministry of Vice and Virtue will now resume the removal of hands for state security. The sports stadium executions are henceforth reinstated. The one-eyed minister has spoken. You girls now encased in black fabric coffins, you cover your face. You stay in the house. You cook family meals. You close your books and you wait for a man to take you to shop. The one-eyed minister has spoken. Thank you. You're muted, Karen.
Oh, I said, thank you, Laura. And I'm sorry I kept you on pins and needles for so long. All right, next up. Oh, I see Sandra is back. Would you like to go next, Sandra? Oh, and you need to unmute now. I muted you when the dogs, when you left the room, I muted you.
All right. Grandpa Poppy. Grandpa Poppy arrives chewing on a cigar. Dad's dad. He downs a jigger of whiskey without touching the glass. Makes me laugh. He asks me what I want for my 6th birthday. I tell him, a dog. What color, he asks. White, brown, and black. Can't have a real dog. My brother's allergic. A stuffed animal has to do. A day later, Grandpa returns, offers me a ribbon box. I already have a hairbrush for Doggie's fur. I toss aside the tissue paper. No, it can't be. It's the wrong stuffed dog. It's the ugliest dog. Large rubber face, giant ears with squeakers, brown yucky freckles like mistakes, coat unbrushable and coarse. Look, Dad smiles, a basset hound. It's white, it's brown, it's black. That's true. Lips quivering, I look over at Grandpa. His large oval head like a honeydew melon, his giant red ears with long flaccid earlobes, jowls that jiggle from his chin, nose, a generous muzzle. Grandpa's gift can't bark, the obvious. Dog's twin. There we go. Oh,
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you.
he's named Fluffy and he's floating somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean because my mom threw out all my stuffed animals when I moved to New York.
Oh, no.
So it's sort of an elegy.
Elegy, love it. So we continue to have people joining us in our Zoom. So I'll just let everybody know again that we are doing open mic now for anyone who would like to share a poem of a page-ish or less-ish. And what we're doing is clicking the reactions button on the bottom of the screen, finding the raise hand icon, clicking on that, and then I'm calling people randomly as they pop up on my screen. And after you, once I call you, you unmute yourself by clicking the microphone icon in the bottom left of your screen, then share your poem and then remute yourself. Whew, that was a mouthful and a half. All right, so, oh, and also, since we're doing really well on our time for open mic, if people would like to share another poem, they can be finding that poem and we'll do a second round as time allows. So, all right, next up, I am seeing Lucinda True. Lucinda?
Thank you. This is a love poem and it's titled Vice Versa. If only it were so easy to make the inverse possible. A shoulder shrug, a dusting off, revisionist history in a winter storm of eraser crumbs. To contrary the construction of words, nomadic birds reversing course, defying north to south currents, an unfaithful flight pattern for the fickle of heart. To say I love you and hear the echo in a ringing cave. To cast the boomerang charm or curse of vice versa. You love me, if only. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucinda. Thank you. All right, I am scouring the screens and I'm not seeing any more raised hands. If I have missed someone who would like to share a poem, unmute yourself and give me a yell. All right, nobody's yelling at me. What a crazy world we live in. All right, let's do this then. If everybody would check their screens and see if you still have your hand raised from earlier. I don't want to out anybody, but a few of you do. I'm looking at you. I can see your little hands up there still. If it's still there, click on your reactions button down there. I think that's how it works. Is that how it works, people, to unraise your hand? Yes. Yeah, click on the reactions, unraise your hand. Okay, I see y'all are getting it. All right, we're learning so much today. So I'm hoping that a few people have decided that they would like to share a second poem. It could even be one that's longer than a page. Don't make me go get my really long poems, people. If you'd like to share a second poem, or you've just now gotten up the courage to share your first poem with us, go ahead and hit that reactions button so you can raise your hand, shine some light on us with the wonder that is your poetry, and I will look for a hand to appear. And we will start some more sharing. Oh, yay, y'all are rocking it. I'm seeing some hands. Okay, let's keep it going. All right, first hand I'm seeing up is Kathy Weisfeld. And you guys, please, if I'm butchering your name, correct me. You can't hurt my feelings with that. Yeah, so Kathy, on to you.
She collects what she can hold in her hand. It's the ephemeral that intrigues her, shared laughter, tears elicited from a story, stars, meals cooked and eaten, phases of the moon, the hope of seeing the first spring bud unfurl. As a child, she kept part of her lunch money, saving to buy nesting toys, dolls from many nations, a toad, an egg, a dragon, a cat. She'd open them, line them up, big to little, always amazed at how small the smallest one could be. She put them back, one inside the other, to change her perspective. As an adult, she buys boxes, metal, wood, paper, clay, boxes she can hold in the palm of her hand. She might fill one, a tiny shell, stone, pearl, marble, coin, or cat whisker. Some she leaves empty. Sometimes she opens one.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. All right, next up, I am seeing Kashiya Williams.
Okay, so this is another poem from the upcoming chapbook, but I decided to read this today because I'm pulling this all the way back from when I took a course with Ron Bays and learned about Lorca. And since Ron is no longer with us, I thought I would read this today. It's called Dance with the Duende. Stomp, stamp, tap. Strings pull, language flows like water, music listens to the fall. Stomp, stamp, tap. Voices of time past speak to the beat. Floor breathes like an infant, small and quick. Language flows like water over the banks of my mind. Oh, thunderous heartbeat, innocent ears are christened as notes bleed with the ink of this pen. Nursery rhymes take me back before him, before it, the knowledge of all that is mortal, love. Thank you.
Thank you, Kashiya. Thank you. All right, next up, I am seeing Jenny Bates. Jenny?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. This is a very short poem. Pieces for the animals of Ukraine. Fat and bright-eyed, well and happy, your heart pumps like a freight train, trying to keep up with your family, not knowing they are fleeing, leaving you behind. You run with them, dazed into the sunlight bombing. They pick up pieces of your once sleek and sassy coat, now stuck to your family like seeds. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you. All right, next up, Danny Powell, I'd see you do not have a hand raised, but I'm wondering if you wanted to share a poem today.
I'm good. I'm just enjoying everybody so much.
All right, very good. All right, well, I do see some hands. And so next up, we are going to have Susan Spalt.
This is a poem called Downsizing, which I wrote when I was supposed to be downsizing. It's hard to know what goes and what stays. I know too well that time is flying. I see the treasure in my days. Time is a keeper the piper pays. There's no use complaining or crying. It's hard to know what goes and what stays. I have loved and laughed in many ways, fell in love without even trying. Now I count the treasure of my days. A poem is more than a pretty phrase. It's not easy finding words, and I'm not lying. How do I know what goes and what stays? It is a question I must always raise. Which came first, poetry or dying? I count the treasure of my days. I have known both criticism and praise. Sometimes cliches are satisfying. It's hard to know what goes and what stays. I'll keep the treasure of my days. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. All right. Next, I see John. Do you like how I didn't do the last name this time?
John, without a last name this time. It's just like hee-haw. So this is called Two Teeth and Seed Corn. We live plague 2 long years, we eat all our seed corn. My answer, make one woman happy this evening. Before you ask with that particular curve of lip, no, not some small foot rub or headboard trip hammer. Neighbor Lovely Flaws relishes earned gray hairs. She allows me the gift, allows help. Alone times when reason wants to put me to bed hours ago, I need to step outside myself. I give gifts to fight my late quiet dark. 'Tis time, good people, time to help neighbors raise barns, to swarm like Amish ants. Build mindful community or else. Look, fellow citizens, fellow egotists, please put your steel-capped boots back in your closet. Learn or relearn the kindness of accepting kindness. Find soft moccasin walk days. Reconsider daisies in rifles. Okay, smile, but only smile. The first one who laughs, I will take 2 teeth with my first blow. Pinky promise. Thank you.
Thank you, John Hall. Thank you. All right, next up, I am seeing Sandra.
Hello. This is called The Last Stand-Up. Michael, my friend, always a laugh away. He quips and I slide down like Gumby, giggling from the gut, collapse, tear-soaked on the elevator floor, wipe my eyes. It's 1977 and his cutting shtick just kills. Gifted impersonator, Michael designs gotta hate, gotta love characters, grist for his brain. There's Herbert, homophobe, aging actor neighbor who won't ever enter the elevator with him. Material, pure gold for the improv on 9th Avenue. Hello, is gayness contagious? Does Herbert think I'll attack? Honey, his paunch, his ears sprouting the white tufts, D- on the misguided seduction scale. His breath jersey smokestack. Like a 45-story high-rise, Michael is the skinny Jewish homosexual whose rigid Long Island dad insists on his conversion to acceptable hetero. Brainwashing camp, expensive, useless. To avoid his ever-rising Hoboken rents, Michael belts out originals. Queen for a Day, Best of the Bitch Boys, singing to fans, many in early stages of a neglected, nebulous plague. Michael asks if I'd like his Yamaha piano. He's set to move to the West Coast, the Village People's San Francisco. Fab cure, he insists, for a threadbare love life. Future, my friend, always a laugh away. Here it is. Okay, I'll mute.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you. Next up, I am seeing Lavonne.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, great.
All right. This poem is currently on the North Carolina Literary Review's website. It's called Huzzle Reflection. Against sable sky, the clouds seem dipped in mercury, are mirrors of moonlight. Still, lacking lightning and thunder's glissando, the night belies the word storm. From eaves to ground, solitary raindrops mime a watery wind chime. Distill the weather front from ephemeral to earthy, something we can feel. Like a small resurrection, the air is laundered of exhaust, the tang of garbage. Stilled stoplights flash, cast amber pools like pollen across pavement. Those of us who are awake during night's opaque envelope crave this stillness, our neighbors' windows glistening like sheets of black ice. Branches of live oaks mimic an opera-gloved audience, yet earlier dreams instilled an unease that will shadow the dawn like an unfed dog. Soon, the revenant sun will spread its carpet, resurface the water-glazed streets. Be still, dear reader. Wait for the clarity that every transformation brings. Thank you.
Thank you, Lavonne. Thank you. All right, next up, I am seeing Les Brown. Les? Whoops, still muted. Oh, there you go.
Okay, let's go light. This is called Just One Camel. I caught Mama smoking right there in front of the cook stove. Straight-laced daughter of a godly Baptist woman who obeyed every commandment and added a few. Thou shalt not smoke, thou shalt not drink, thou shalt not fornicate. Mama's worldwide sister Mary put her up to it, gave her one of her camels, the only one that I knew of. When Mama saw me watching her sinning right there in the kitchen, she opened the eye of that stove and threw the camel right into the fire and brimstone. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. Thank you. All right, next up, I am seeing Catherine Wolf. Catherine? Oh, Catherine, you're looking like you're talking, but you're still muted.
Okay, here I am.
There you go.
The other poem I read about my father's gift was from Hermit Feathers Press this year. And I have another poem that is in Hermit Feathers Press. Bridges to the Sea. My creative spirit craves ocean waves and sand-covered shores. So at 82, I still make the 4-hour trip to the beaches of the Outer Banks. I stopped several times now. My first is a country store that sells sliced hoop cheese and hot homemade biscuits. With biscuits in hand, I turn my radio to prime country. Alan Jackson, Remember When. Then one more stop before the Alligator River Bridge, the first of my bridges to the sea. Today, the drawbridge is open for an approaching luxury super yacht. I roll down my window to feel the salt air. A seagull perches on the rail outside as if to welcome me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, you guys. Great. Okay. Next up, hope I'm not missing people. I just see a few. Let's see. Sam Barbee.
All right. This is from my current collection, Uncommon Book of Prayer from Main Street Rag, and has a very kind review and Asheville Poetry Review in this edition. I'll read. This is a trip we took to England, and just some poems from that. Levels, Bath and Somerset. Those Romans did things right. Bath proves it. Boiling underground spring adapted to a spa, complete with Turkish baths and saunas, fit for fat senators and their legions of young men, submerged under mud for centuries, built over, rediscovered by chance. My son moves about on his own, through relics and ruins, explores different levels. Stone chambers with fluted columns, a Celtic Gorgon smiling down, private bathing pool enjoyed by centurions, the Victorian elite, monks from the Abbey. Different eras reveal rings stained with iron and sulfur. My child moves far ahead, peers across the green pool into a different archway, looking perfect among bleached statues, chestnut hair sun-glossed. I wave. His palms flash to me for a moment, foretells this new season when devotion and independence must mingle. He moves through the hot bath, cold bath, touring as student, as warrior, asserting his philosophy. I let him go and reminisce, taking strolls, my arm on his shoulder, and bath times, immersing him as muscle bloomed, definition taking hold. End. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you. Next up, I think Joyce Brown has a hand raised. Joyce, did you want to share with us?
Yep, this time I'll be brief.
No need.
This is from my book, Standing on the Outcrop by Red Hawk Publishing. Some of you may be familiar with that wonderful addition to North Carolina Poetry Life. It's called, the poem I'm reading is, the book is about, I'll say this right, the book is about a valley, North Cove Valley, where Les Brown grew up. It was a valley of big farms, but the railroad was built. Farmers couldn't make a living. Did I do something wrong? I'm sorry. My picture seems to have gone.
Oh, well, we can see you, so don't do anything.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Farmers couldn't make a living, and the railroad was built, and the farmers had to go into the factories that were built to accommodate the railroad. This is called The Clinchfield Sang Siren Songs to the Mountain Dwellers, 1910. While they were sleeping in their cold, hard rooms, the train thundered, shook them away from fields, hoes. Their mules bellowed, come on, come on, come on. We'll give you money, a house, a church, and you can work shifts. And then go to bed, go to bed, go to bed, rest easy, easy, easy down in Marion Town. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you. All right, next up, I am seeing Joan Barasovska.
Hello, everyone. This poem is from my book, which will be published on Tuesday by Main Street Rag. The name of the book is Carrying Claire. So Tuesday, I am ever so glad it's finally coming out. And here is the link. And the title of the book is Carrying Claire. The two of them. It's all about Claire. John sits beside me in my bedroom, home early from soccer practice, because Claire is sick again and I have to set up her IV. On my dresser sits a picture of the two of them laughing. John, 4, in blue pajamas, is cradled in Claire's arms. Claire's long sunlit hair spills over him. The miles we drive going to John's games and tournaments, scorching or freezing on bleachers, don't matter to the brother who is almost always healthy, fobbed off on friends in a crisis, all his life dragged along to doctors, drugstores, hospital visits. I can see another photo on the dresser, an older one in black and white. Claire and her dad are visiting me and newborn Johnny in the hospital. Claire is seated, a pillow across her lap, sleeping baby held in her protective arms. Her face, half in shadow, is beatific. I think of a photo in the box labeled Claire 6, John 2. Claire lies on her twin bed, shirt pulled to her chin, a tray of syringes balanced beside her. I bend over her wearing surgical gloves, about to flush her portacath. Johnny in red overalls, big grin on his face, has crawled up on the narrow bed to play. He's about to pounce on sister right before the picture taker grabs him. I don't argue against John's case. The entire family tips in Claire's direction. I look sideways at the tearful, angry boy beside me. He's forged in our family's crucible of fear and love. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you. All right, next up, I believe this is going to be our finale reader for the day's open mic, Bill Griffin.
Thanks, Karen, and thanks, Joan. Very powerful stories in that book. I encourage you all to look into it. So this Wednesday, the 23rd, if you're anywhere near Charlotte, come on down to Water Bean Coffee, because Lynn Farmer and I are going to be reading, actually in person, not virtually. I can't believe it. I'm going to be reading from my sort of recent chap book. And I'm going to read a poem from that called Dry Camp. You know the sun will jilt you hours before the next creek crossing. At the last trickle of a spring, you stow extra, then hike on to save the light. You nurse those bottles and hope to have sufficient for a cup of tea at your dry camp. Next morning, gear stowed, you finish the final 3 cold swallows and tackle the climb you know you've got to cover before you drink again. That's how you and I have traveled since we chose to walk this trail called Different Lives. To cool my throat, I recollect that last night. Take a sip of memory, sip, make it last. And if I finally come to Lonesome Branch, I pray you'll meet me there, the bed not gone completely dry. Pray the miles that have worn us down may also satisfy our thirst.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. And I just want to thank everybody that shared today and everybody that listened today. What an awesome open mic. I'm so glad we had a little bit longer to do it than we usually do. So I do want to let everybody know before you log out today, if you would like to save all the wonderful comments that have been going into the chat, you want to do that before you log out of our Zoom room. And the way you do that, Paul, I know you're on and you're our expert tech person. Well, I mean, way more expert than me. I believe what you do is you click on chat and there should be 3 little dots, dot, 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 somewhere, hopefully near the top of your screen. And if you click on that, it will tell your computer to magically save the chat. And somewhere in your computer, then the chat will be with all the great comments from everybody. So we're getting ready to take our lunch break, which really isn't a break. You can stay on. That's when it's like free for all. We're going to take our lunch free for all now. I hope everybody will stick around. And what we'll do is just, we're just going to chat and hang out. Our afternoon program, Lavonne, would you like to tell us about that before we go so people don't wander and not get back? Not to put you on the spot.
That's fine. I'm going to do a session on poetry of place. And here is the game plan. I'll present an overview of poetry of place that incorporates some examples. Then we'll transition into some writing prompts, followed by questions and comments. And as someone mentioned earlier, I hope you'll continue working on some of these poems, that the starts will inspire you. And we will be doing a workshop in April to kind of follow up with it, so you have a chance to share those poems.
Awesome.
So excited about that. Was that the voice of our fearless leader that just chimed in?
Yes, I was gone, but I had to come back and just in case I needed to.
Bail me
Usually,
out.
Linda usually runs the whole program because that's what she does. But I just want to make sure I was kind of around just in case something happened that we didn't anticipate. But you're doing such a great job, Karen. I had no doubt that you could handle it all. I really was not in fear. I just want you to think I was abandoning you completely.
No, this is big fun. I'm just having a great time. I hope everybody else is too. So, Celestine, what is our time frame on lunch? When do we need to
we need to be back no later than 1. So people can start checking in a little bit before 1 so she can start on time at 1 so we can get all that she has to offer and get some time for some Q&A at the end. That would be wonderful. But like you stay in, this lunch is some of our best times is during lunch. You can network and share your work and talk about things, ask about things. We have so many people who have so much knowledge about how to get certain things published, who's doing what, just what's different, just different things that's going on along the state in their area. So hang out if you can. Go grab your snack and whatever you're going to eat for lunch and just come back.
Yeah, just leave your screen on. So Celestine, I know
don't sign out if you're coming back. Just you can just stop your video or whatever, get yourself some food and come on back and talk to us.
So Celestine,
I might not be here because I have to go for something I have to take care of, but I'll be back in as soon as I can, definitely before 1.
Okay, let me ask you one thing before you get gone, Celestine.
Sure.
I know you gave me limited superpowers today during the open mic, but the power I'm lacking knowledge in is how to make the recording stop. So
okay, I did make you the host, so you have that superpower.
Oh, how do I do that?
It should be down at the bottom. It should be something. It might be at the top. It might
where it says pause, stop recording.
Yes, either one you want to do.
Okay, so I want to.
Recording. Welcome back to our afternoon workshop featuring poet, Professor Lavonne J. Adams. She's the author of a full-length poetry collection, 2 chapbooks, and more than 150 individual poetry collections in literary journals, including the Missouri Review, the Prairie Schooner, and Art for Dodge. She's also a finalist for the current James Applewhite Poetry Prize. And she studied with Philip Levine and completed residencies at Vermont Studio Center, the Harwood Museum of Art, which is part of the University of New Mexico, Taos, and the Helene Wurlitzer Foundation. She was also a Gilbert Chapel Distinguished Poet for Eastern North Carolina. And so right now she's retired from her professorship, but she is very hot on the trail of spreading all her knowledge to all of us just suck it up. So we welcome her. And I'm still, you see, I'm so excited because Karen just finished leading the lunch meetings that we have. And so I'm still hyper from that. So you guys, if you didn't stay around for lunch, you really missed it. And so welcome, Lavonne, and get started in any way you see fit. Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity. In this session, I'll present an overview of poetry of place that incorporates examples. Then we'll transition to some writing prompts. So make sure you have paper and pencil or whatever you want to use handy, followed by questions and/or comments. I imagine the list you could compile of all the different types of poems you might write. Personal poems, love poems, poems of protest, poems of definition, documentary poetry, confessional poetry, poetry of place. Think about how we locate ourselves in the world, and then how imperative place is as a means of relaying an idea, a foundation, or as background. Windfall, a journal of poetry and place, has an insightful online introduction. They posit that a poetry of place is a poetry which values the locales, which sees and lets the reader experience what makes a place unique among other places. Place is often an integral part of the poem, so essential that it may be considered as a character in a poem or in a full-length collection. Think of the work of those we label nature poets, like Mary Oliver. Certainly her work is steeped in a sense of place. There are numerous collections that rely on place as a foundation. For example, several collections are anchored in the city of New Orleans. Anyone heard of Natasha Trethewey, Pulitzer Prize winner and former poet laureate? This is her second collection, Belloc's Ophelia. Belloc was a photographer in the early 1900s who took photographs of prostitutes in the red light district of New Orleans, an area known as Storyville. Trethewey creates a fictional character as a way of examining that historical reality. Listen to how she brings setting to life. This poem is called July 1911. The environment of this place is such as I never expected, as if the very flourish that is nature must rival what men have made here. The stone facades of buildings in Jackson Square, Cabildo and Cathedral, spires pricking a tumble of clouds, releasing, it seems, our daily dose of rain. And then there are the quaint rows of houses, whitewashed, set amongst gardens of trees, weighted with lemons, oranges, tangled beards of Spanish moss, verdant, close-clipped yards choked with all sorts of vines, wild bougainvillea and its bright blooms, wet city, city below sea level. Here the rain feeds the creeping mold, dulls the scent of garbage in the alleys, washes clean the surface of everything, leaves a temporary shine, the whole city cloaked in brilliantine, a fleeting golden dream. Now, this poem she presents in couplets, many of them very, very brief, and it kind of reflects somebody who is in a new place, how their eye moves very quickly from one place to another as they're trying to gather in the information of how that place feels. In this collection, The Wishing Tomb by Amanda Oker, she takes us from the colonial in the first poem, let me try this again, Letter to Comte de Pontchartrain, December 1697, to the contemporary, thus providing us with a condensed history of the city. Her final poem is titled Late Pastoral 2010. So it takes you from the 1600s up to contemporary days. Listen for the movement from description of place in this poem to political commentary. The poem is called Late Pastoral. How beautiful this was in the beginning. White mulberry, Indian corn, a source without suffering, without crime. The blue-white wall of sky above us and nothing for miles but water, duckweed, Tupelo gum. It is April and the sky streaks auburn, and on the horizon, a fire burns into the sea. It is May, then June and August, and heat drifts in from the Gulf, And I don't think that we have forgotten what wind can do, how it can peel through fingers of marshland, rush in its damp color. It is August and we watch the crime unfold through eddies and inlets on each boat that docks with rings of ochre oil. Every evening, a man calls his son back from the water's edge. The water laps in an aigrette. They do not touch it, but see how the dark slick has filled its mouth, covered its eyes. The water offers the body, then pushes it back into the brackish dusk. Its chemical smell fills the mouths of men scraping the sand with rakes. They watch what washes ashore. Blue crab, wiregrass, small balls of dark tar. Watch the beach dissolve into oil-coated stalks of Rousseau cane, a net of dead fish. How beautiful this was when the sun flickered silver in its earnest rising. How much we want to unstrangle the marshes, the oil-rolled shoreline, to return to the light in the cypress, the mangrove, ox grass, the stirring of seabirds, rising, rising. I think that's a beautiful poem. Well, perhaps you'd be more interested in Patricia Smith's Blood Dazzler, in which she describes the decimation of the city by Hurricane Katrina. She uses persona poems for the hurricane, the citizens, and the city. Ms. Smith says that after she's written about a place, there's a moment when it stands in newly stark relief, vulnerable and unveiled. If you look long enough, she adds, you'll see stories pulsing there. Because of recent news, I feel compelled to mention Ilya Kaminsky's Dancing in Odessa, which is put out by Tupelo Press. I got an email today that said they are donating money for every copy of that book that is published. It's a gorgeous collection. He was born in Odessa. And I read somewhere that he is watching very carefully what is happening in that city of his birth. Or perhaps you prefer something a little closer to home. This is Kettle Bottom by Diane Fisher. This collection will transport you to the 1920-1921 coal mine wars in West Virginia. My guess is that you could all come up with numerous examples of poems or collections by contemporary North Carolina poets that focus on a locale, perhaps your own work. We certainly heard some of those poems this morning. I'm still envious of some of the beautiful metaphors that I heard. Southern literature, by definition, exhibits a deep attachment to the land. At the last meeting during our lunch break, I mentioned this collection, Daniel Boone's Window by Matthew Wimberly. It's a recent publication set in the mountains of North Carolina. Here's another personal favorite, Carolina Ghost Woods, which includes topics such as poverty, superstition, family violence, suicide. More about this collection in a few minutes. Let me add that when we refer to setting, we're not just referring to place and locale, but also to time. References to time can help orient our readers. We all carry cultural knowledge with us into any reading of a poem. Imagine how your expectations might shift when reading a poem about a married couple in the 1950s versus in 2022. I can think of no one who does a better job of bringing to life poems about his past through place than former poet laureate Philip Levine. I'm going to read a poem. It's the title poem of his posthumous collection, The Last Shift. I want you to know ahead of time, the poem is free verse and has no stanza break. So it's one long poem. It doesn't let you leave the poem any kind of pause till the very end. So once again, this is The Last Shift. I had been on my way to work as usual when the traffic stalled a quarter mile from the railroad crossing on Grand Boulevard. Then I saw the moon rise above the packing sheds of the old Packard plant. The moon at 7:30 in the morning, and the radio went on playing the same violins and voices I didn't listen to each morning. Back in the alley, the guys in greasy dark wool jackets were keeping warm by a little fire made from fence posts and garage doors, and tossing their empty wine bottles into the street, where they shattered on the frosted roofs of cars and scattered like chunks of ice. A police car dozed across the street, its motor running. I could see the two of them eating sugar donuts as delicately as two elderly women, and drinking their coffee from little styrofoam cups. Soon the kids would descend from these lightless houses, gloved and scarved. On their way to school with tin boxes of sandwiches and cookies, they would slide on the ice and steal each other's foolish hats and laugh while they still could, their breath pushing out into the morning air in little trumpets of steam. I wondered if anyone would step from the faceless two-storied house beside me, all of its rooms torn into view, its connections and tubing gone, the furniture gone, the floors ripped up for firewood. Up ahead, I could hear that the train had stopped. The bells went on ringing for a minute. The blinking arms of light went from red to nothing. Around me, the engines began to die, and then my own went. It was strangely quiet, another town or maybe another world. I could feel a deep cold climbing my legs, which wouldn't move. My eyes began to itch and blink on a darkness I had never seen before. I knew these tiny glazed pictures, a car hood, my own speedometer, the steering wheel, the windshield fogging over, were the last I'd ever see. These places where I had lived all the days of my life were giving up their hold on me, and not a moment too soon. Lavonne tells you that the time of day, 7:30 a.m., and shows the time of year through details such as frosted roofs of cars, kids who are gloved and scarved, sliding on the ice, their breath like little trumpets of steam. In the first few lines, he places us on a specific street near the old Packard plant. We learn through description that this is a crumbling neighborhood. By the time we reach the end of the poem, we realize that the last shift may refer not only to the last shift at that Packard plant, but a final shift in his perception of his own life. Of course, as practicing poets, our main goal is not in analyzing the work of others, but to learn from others in order to enrich our own writing. Maxine Kuhlman suggested that location is where we start from. Let's put that to the test. So here's what we're going to do. If you're holding a pen or a pencil in your hand, put it down for just a few minutes. And I'd like you to close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Release that breath. Take another breath. Release that breath. And now I want you to imagine yourself standing in front of a childhood home. I want you to walk up to the front door, open that door, step inside, and look around. Do you hear any sounds? Do you smell anything? Step into the living room. How many windows do you see? What is the furniture like? Is there something on the floor? Is there artwork hanging on the walls? Are there pictures of family? Then see yourself stepping into the dining room or whatever your dining area was. What kind of table is there? What else is in the room? Move into the kitchen. Look at the appliances. Look at the counters. Is there a clock in that room? Are there windows? Are there rugs on the floor? Now imagine yourself walking into the area where you slept. Where is your bed? What favorite things do you see placed around the room? Now imagine yourself stepping outside of the house. Do you see a yard? Are there neighbors nearby? Is there a sidewalk? Is there a street? Are there trees? Are there bushes? Are there flowers? What kind of sounds do you hear outside? Is it a quiet neighborhood or are you in the midst of the city? Now I want you to take another deep breath. Open your eyes. And I'm going to give you 5 minutes to write down what you saw. All right, finish whatever thought you're on. So that's where we start. Now back to Judy Jordan. When she was 7 years old, she caught a meadowlark, brought it home, and released it in the house. Locals believe that birds carry souls, thus are harbingers of death. 1 month later, her mother died. Judy thus believed she somehow caused her mother's death, a heavy guilt which plays a large part in this collection of poetry. Here's a poem dedicated to her mother. Unlike Levine's long stanza, this poem is broken into 2 stanzas to emphasize the shift from locale to why she is focused on that locale. I'll pause for that stanza break. The poem is called Winter. First light shook with axe blows to the frozen pond, and the geese called in guttural distress as I chopped through to the still black water. All day the land gave over to thaw, and snow released the cabin, softened and eased off the ridged tin roof in foundation shaking crashes, until night when Orion whistled his dogs behind clouds mottled like weathered rock. Then the farm sighed under the new storm, and silence returned like an old sorrow. I wish that silence held some answer or passage to forgetting. I would go to it with its hesitant and dangerous tacks, its seepage into night like shadows slipping into bodies where it hangs like smoke, drifts into itself as smoke will, rises slow above trees to the flat of the sky, rises and hangs, and, like sorrow, waits and will not fade. So now, return to your free write and list several associations that you have with your family home. When you have several on the page, see which one your eye keeps returning to. Might not be the one that intellectually you think, oh, this is what I want to write about, but go on that instinct of where your eyes are leading you and put a star next to that association that is somehow the most important one to you at this moment in time. And there, if you choose, could be the core of your next poem. Imagine a collection that begins with this poem, expands to your neighborhood, to your state, maybe even to the country, or the opposite, narrowing focus and concluding with this poem about your home, as if all the things in the world are somehow pulling you back to that place in this seed in your life that was somehow very, very important to you. Here are a couple more writing exercises that focus on place. Go to a place that you know well. Allow yourself to sit quietly, then write a description of the place using as many sensory details as possible. Give yourself the freedom to make what seem to be random associations. Next, try the same exercise in a place you have never been before. Consider the challenges of each, which led to the most interesting poem. I would love to hear what happens for those of you who try that, just to see which dynamic is more, is more creative for you. As I mentioned earlier, on April 9th from 9 to 11 a.m., the North Carolina Poetry Society is going to offer a workshop on these poems that I will be leading. It's free to members of the North Carolina Poetry Society, a small fee for non-members. This session will be held on Zoom and will be limited to 8 attendees. First come, first served. If you're interested and would like to be one of those 8 people, email me at lavonne.j.adams@gmail.com. Once again, that's lavonne.j.adams@gmail.com. I will contact you with further information if you're one of the first 8. If not, I'll put you on a waiting list and let you know that also, just in case somebody canceled. If you prefer a longer workshop experience, I'm leading an 8-week workshop that meets on Wednesday evenings from 6:30 to 8, beginning on Wednesday, March 30th at the Durham Arts Council. You can register on their website, durhamarts.org. So let's open this up now for questions or perhaps comments, or if there's anything else you would like to discuss about this type of poetry.
One thing that came to mind as you were talking about all the different things that can tie you to a place is I was just reading some haiku online this week. And of course, there's trigger words that immediately when you see the word, you know what season it is and so forth. And one of them and so last night was full moon, and the last full moon before the vernal equinox is called the worm moon in some places. Wow. Because it's when the ground is thawing and the worms start moving, or because the beetle grubs are starting to move in the bark. And so I saw this haiku yesterday, if I can remember it. It was snow melting unblankets the grass, worm moon. So as soon as you see worm moon, you know when you are. And if you know about snow unblanketing the grass, you know you're not in North Carolina, because and this person is in Vermont, actually. But it only can take a word or two to really anchor the season. And there are a lot of, when flowers bloom, when the birds return, when they fledge, all that sort of thing. Anchors you to a time.
That's wonderful, a great comment. And certainly when we talk about haikus, that is most likely going to be something nature oriented, at least in the trend, in the tradition, it's going to be nature oriented. And the fact that you can use such a small space to create something so monumental, I think is wonderful. Other comments or questions? Yeah, Joan.
What I'm interested in is anchoring a poem in place, any kind of poem, from the very beginning, it very quickly, in the first few lines, and teaching students how to do that so that the poem is not just floating free. I'm paying more and more attention to that in my own poetry, to immediately create a setting.
And I would suggest, and probably this is what you automatically do, either start with something really concrete, or be aware that you just have a tendency to, as you're working your way into a poem, maybe that first really concrete specific detail doesn't come for 4 or 5 lines in an early draft. And that would be something that you would look at in a subsequent draft. And I mean, the power of editing is just amazing. And often the beauty of a poem is right there. We were talking earlier during the lunch break about getting rejections from places. And so often poems that I saw when I was workshopping students' work, the entire beauty and just insights of the poem are there, but they're kind of jumbled up. And just taking a look at what's coming first, second, third, fourth, and so on, and starting in a really strong place and then making sure you end at a great place. I catch myself on that all the time. I often in early drafts, and I'm guilty of sending them out too early, I'll get it back and I'll look at it and go, like, what was I thinking? That last line just totally undermines the whole poem. And if I cut it back one sentence, there's the true ending. So I think once again, those editing, that constantly getting yourself to edit, and even putting aside work for months until you don't really remember the poem, and then looking at it again with the fresh eyes, all of a sudden you're shifting from that creative energy that's given you that poem to that other part of your brain that's going to look at it more logically and figure out what you need to do with it to pull it to the level that you want it to be.
And kids want to just put it in the rear view mirror.
Right, right. Now let me pause for a second, since this is the first time I've ever done a Zoom thing. Is there somebody who's kind of watching who can switch it over from me to whoever is asking questions? Or
Sure,
is that happening?
I can do it to, yeah.
Okay.
You can change it to speaker view. There you go.
Okay.
So whoever's speaking, that's what we'll go to.
Okay.
It was on the gallery view, so we saw everyone, but now it is switched to whoever's speaking.
Lavonne, I have one thing, something I'd like to say. It's Iris.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Iris.
Especially when Bill talked about haiku. For those of you who don't know, or those of you who do, many years ago, I walked and bicycled in memory of my son. And I went from where he was born, raised and buried, a little town outside of Cleveland, Ohio. And I walked and bicycled to where he died in Phoenix, Arizona. And as I walked and bicycled, I wrote a haiku every day and talking about what I saw or how I was feeling on that day or what kind of a day it was. So I have a whole chapter called Pilgrimage Haiku. And I really enjoy haiku. And I have beach haiku. I have Weymouth haiku. Because as I was walking and biking, I didn't want to stop to write. So I just put it in my head. And then when I did stop, I was able to sit down and write it. I just wanted to share that with you because I really want to hear this because I love poetry of place. And I got the question, the one night or one day workshop you're doing, what was that, March?
That will be April 9th.
Oh, April, okay, I didn't get that.
Saturday.
Okay. Thank you.
And certainly, I mean, when you talk about the haiku, something I'm really, really interested in is the form people choose to use for their poems. And when I say form, I don't just mean like a formal poem, like a haiku or a sestina or something, or a sonnet. What I mean is how you want the poem to look on the page. And free verse, people will say, oh, I just write in free verse, as if somehow they're not doing the same work. It's not what he's doing when they're putting something into formal verse versus form. And certainly with free verse, you have a lot more freedom in how you decide your poem will look on the page, but the shape is every bit as important. The difference between couplets versus tercets versus one long stanza from which you can't escape until you hit the end of the poem. Long lines that slow down your reader and make them more relaxed or more contemplative versus really short lines that show like this energy of something that the speaker's very excited about, or if you have really narrow lines that lead down the page in long stanza, your reader's going to be fighting that. Like their eyes don't want to move that fast. So you're creating attention in your reader. So the fact that you chose haiku was in one sense because of the ease of writing with the haiku and trying to remember it. Another, probably just trying to capture those small, most important moments of each day. You could say that the haiku form really made that possible for you. And it would also make you think in terms of closing something in on the page, which I think would be just beautiful considering that topic. So congratulations on doing that. That just sounds like that would be a life-altering trip.
And I wrote a book about it. It's called Tell Your Story, Walking One Mother's Legacy.
Wow.
It has all those haikus in it, yeah.
Good for you. Good for
Thank
you.
you.
Somebody else, questions or comments? Well, tell me, who are some of your favorite poets of place? Do you have one person that you think of? And you can unmute yourself if you would like to make a comment.
I certainly think of Robinson Jeffers, not only because his poems are rooted in the Pacific coast where he lived, but the place is usually the main character of the poem. He takes the human out of the poem. He sometimes refers to human beings as unfortunate bacteria or something like that. I can't remember the exact term, but he makes the place and the earth primary and primal.
I was going to mention one of my all-time favorite poets is John Haynes, and most of his work is out of print now, but his poetry about Alaska in the 40s and 50s is just breathtaking. And today if I feel really down about something, I get the old Falling Apart book of John Haynes called Winter News and take it out and read it. And I've loved it since long before I ever even went to Alaska. But the other thing that occurred to me with poetry of place, I don't remember the earliest house I lived in very well because we moved a lot. And I think the poetry of place for me is leaving and returning and going to a new place, and having lived in Italy as a teenager, becoming part of a place that wasn't really my first home or my first language, and then being able to go back to that and being welcomed back even when I don't understand everything that's happening, which is most of the time. So it was really interesting to think about how I see places as coming and going.
Mm-hmm. You made a couple of really important points there. The first is that when we read poems of place, they can take us places that we will not in our lifetime go. So it's giving you that opportunity. I know when I heard Mark Strand do a talk many, many years ago, he stated that we read fiction because we want to escape. We read poetry because we want to connect. So that connecting with a place, I think, can be very important to who we are. I mean, when we talk about who we are, most people talk about place, like where they live, where they grew up. Place is important, right along with who they love. These are the things, and then what they do with their life, what they choose to do. This is how we decide who we are in the world. So I think by ignoring place, like you're missing a huge opportunity to show people things through your writing. And then the second one you said about going back, that's a problem I've had, and I don't know how to resolve it, that I'll go someplace and I'll think I know, like I went to New Mexico for the first time I went, thought it was going to be the only time I went, but I went to New Mexico and I spent a week there. And during that week, I went to a lot of different places and I was making notes, and I thought, oh, this is what I'm going to write about. This is so fascinating. This is so interesting. And so I was taking notes. And of course, then when I got back home, like a week later, I'm like, oh no, what I really want to write about is that small place where I stopped to just get a drink at the end of the day of walking around. And what was that place called? And where was it? And what did it look like? So the things I thought were important to me at the time turned out not to be the things that were important. I was very lucky. When I finished one writing project I was working on, I did a lot of documentary poetry. I kept thinking, okay, what am I going to write now? What am I going to write now? And I remembered glancing at this plaque on a wall that said, this was the end of the Santa Fe Trail. And that's what came to my mind. I'm like, what? I don't know anything about the West. I don't want to write about the West. So I went another week without writing. And then I was like, okay, what should I be writing about? I saw that plaque in my mind again. I'm like, what? No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to write about that. And then I'm like, well, another week went by and I couldn't write a word. And I was like, fine, I'll go research the Santa Fe Trail. And what the first thing I found was a book by a woman who went on the Santa Fe Trail, and I was instantly caught. And so from that point on, I spent like the next couple of years writing, and the collection was published. It's called Through the Glorietta Pass, and it's in different voices of the women who went on the trail. But it just shows you, you never know what your creative self is going to find important. Or that if you want to say your soul, your writing soul, if you let it take over, like where it's going to take you. So remain open in those kind of random associations, write them down because you have no idea how important they might be. Yes, Susan, or somebody else?
I was just going to mention that one of the things that Poetry of Place is to me is food and smell and music, and how you can be transported to a place or a memory from your childhood just by a random food or a piece of music or something like that. And I have always found that to be really inspiring to me.
And I think they say that smell is the #1 sense for recall. And how many of you, when you did that free write, what did those kitchens look like? Especially the appliances.
I remembered my mother's mixer on the counter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jen.
I remembered the smell of my mother's chocolate chip cookies.
Wow. Oh, that's really that was probably comforting and wonderful.
It was.
Yeah.
I love the idea of talking about it from the perspective of, what you mentioned about where you are, but also when you are. I think that's really the most important thing to me. It's like, who was I at that moment? Why is this moment, why am I recalling this moment? So that's really my perspective right now, is connecting those things.
And if you try to go back to the very first thing you remember, which really push yourself, like maybe start at kindergarten and then go back further and further and try to figure out what the first thing you remember is. And that memory will stick with you because it was either something that frightened you or it was something that made you very happy. There's no middle ground there. It will have imprinted itself on your mind because it has that kind of intense emotional value. So that might be another good topic for a day when you can't think of what to write about. Go back to that very first memory. And definitely then in that memory, Celestine, you want to let people know, and somehow in the poem, like what year it was. Certainly with Joan, her description of her mother's mixer, we would know it wasn't contemporary. And I was thinking about when I used to do this with the students, they would start laughing because so many of them would say, yeah, they're in their mother's kitchen. There were avocado green refrigerators and stoves. And of course, those of us who were around, we know exactly when that was, that those kind of appliances were there. And think right now, whatever is in your kitchen years from now, somebody will say, oh yeah, remember when they had microwaves? Ha ha ha.
I just wanted to share that the kitchen is the only room I couldn't see.
Oh, that's interesting.
I saw all the other rooms, but no kitchen.
Oh, that would make a great poem. Just starting out and saying, I can remember every room in the house but the kitchen, and then kind of conjecture as to why you can't see that. And you could really have fun with that. You could just like really make up stuff. Because remember, poetry isn't always true. I think people who lock themselves in and say, okay, I have to tell the truth in this poem are missing out on a chance to just really have fun. I used to make my students do fake confessional poems. And they were hilarious. Often you'd see whatever their fear was, but they were just hilarious. Other comments?
I have a couple of appliances from my grandmother's house on the Jersey Shore. So one of my memories of an early kitchen is the smell of burnt toast. Does anyone remember the old flip-sided toasters? You can actually catch toast on fire in those things. And an old waffle iron that did catch on fire. And I still have my grandmother's old orange juice squeezer that I showed to our grandchildren, and they were amazed that you could put an orange in something and manually squeeze it and get orange juice. But when I smell burnt toast, which is often, because even now in the modern toasters, I burn it and it sets off the smoke alarm, but it sends me back to my grandmother's house where the appliances had a way of being very dramatic and catching things on fire. And it was quite an interesting childhood.
Boy, wouldn't that be an interesting topic as a poem? I mean, to take somebody back to not your house, but a grandparent's house, because then you already have kind of, as soon as you say my grandmother's house, there is an emotional intensity that naturally goes with that, that can kind of give fuel to the poem itself. Any other questions about anything that I could answer if you're interested in form or?
Lavonne, I just wanted to say, I appreciate how you had us go into the exercise by closing our eyes first off and breathing, and then putting us outside our childhood home. So that I mean, for me, the experience was I'm literally opening the door and stepping into how it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really interesting because I wasn't just focusing on, oh, describe what it looks like, but because I was coming from, I've just been breathing and seeing the inside of my head, right? And now my eyes are open and I'm writing. It was a really nice way to come into the poem.
Well,
Yeah.
good.
I'm
glad that worked for you.
Yeah, that was great.
Other comments? If not, I will turn this back over to the powers that be in case they have anything else they would like to add.
I'll just add, check out the chat. There's some very nice comments and suggestions of poems.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, because that's something I was so focused on you guys, I didn't even pay attention to the chat. So thank you. I will save the chat right now.
Yes, I suggest everyone save the chat. You never know, there might be something in there. It's a lot of links to some beautiful places with some lovely poetry, just some ideas. You never know. People are saying little things that might give you an idea for writing a poem of your own. Might jog your memory about something. It's a lot of great information over there. Also put the information about the April 9th follow-up workshop and her Lavonne's email address. And she'll be having that Zoom link by probably later today, and she can start sharing that out whenever she wants to, whenever you guys start calling in and contacting her about becoming part of that second workshop. So I'm excited about it. Yes, thank you so
I can't
much.
wait to read your poems.
This has been wonderful. I just want to thank you guys so much for coming and participating. I really love the workshop. Thank you again, Lavonne, for that. And also, I want to invite you to continue to follow us as we develop this special programming for our 90th anniversary. please pay special attention to that. Make sure you read that e-news, and we're going to try to make sure you stay, get all the information out there as any way we can. For we know everybody's not on Facebook, but some people are a lot on Facebook. So we're going to put it everywhere we can that you can find it. And if you can't find it anywhere, go to the website, and there's all the people are listed. You can just contact any of us and we will get the information to you. I also want you to make sure you check out Poets and Poetry Matters, which does show up on Facebook, but also going to push them out to YouTube, and I'll provide that information as well on eMuse as well, so that you can make sure you see those. So far, I've had two wonderful interviews and also poetry readings or performances. So far, we've had two, one with Glennis Redmond, and also the second one I just had was with Keith Flynn, and they're very generous offerings of their practices, what their motivations, and their work. So please make sure you check those out. It was a lot of fun for me. It's a really, it's a joy. It's really something that really gives me great joy to do these interviews. And I'll be interviewing other people as the months go on. So if you want to suggest someone, you can just send me an email at poetrydame2.0@gmail.com. And or so you can contact me through the website, because that will bring your information to me as well. So again, just thank you. Did anyone else have any last words they want to share?
I do.
Okay.
I just would like somebody else to explain verbally how to save the chat to everybody. Yeah,
Okay.
because we did have a question in the chat about how do you do that? How do we save it?
If you're in the chat, if you go where it says to everyone, and you go all the way to the right, you see like something look like a page. You see something look like a smiley face, like an emoji, and then you see those three little dots. If you click on those three little dots, at the very top, it'll say Save Chat. And where to save on your computer, I don't know. Mine saved to my documents, but it may save to your downloads. And so you can just look for that, after you save it, and then you can just look for where it is, and it'll be identified, as Zoom chat. Okay.
I'm on the iPad, and it doesn't seem to do that, but that's okay.
It doesn't? It doesn't give you an option to save the chat?
Mm-mm.
Wow. Does
Try
anyone else have an iPad?
Scroll around, move around, because sometimes it's not in the same place, but it should
Yeah.
be somewhere. If you scroll around in the chat.
Well, I'll try again, but I don't see it.
So are you in the chat now?
You could also, if you can't find it, you could copy the whole chat and just, copy it.
Put it into a
Word
document.
and you'll have it.
Okay, I'll try that.
Celestine, I have a question. Is the eMuse going to be online from now on? Because I did not get a hard copy in the mail.
We send that out through your email. The eMuse is like monthly, and then we'll have the Pine Whispers is different. That'll be a hard copy, and you should be getting that in the next week or so. It's already published. We don't know when they're sending it physically out, when you're going to receive it.
Sometimes I don't read all my emails, and I almost miss this.
Okay. If that's the case and you miss, just contact one of us and we'll send it to you, because even we can send a link to the eMuse to you as well if you miss that. Okay.
No, I see. Sometimes I don't read my emails.
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
So I wouldn't have seen this, but thank you.
All right then.
Celestine,
if you don't see it in your email, then reach out to us.
Okay.
If you said, I haven't heard anything for a while, just reach out to one of us and we'll send you whatever you might have missed.
Okay, great.
Celestine,
Thank you for the day.
Kathy reminds us that the awards day in May is May 21st, and that's when the student and adult contest winners will read their winning poems. That's May 21st from 10 to 2.
Thank you so much for that, Joan. Thank you, Kathy. That's going to be a very important day. That's going to be fun. I love to see when the young people come out, because once you plant that seed, it's like magic. It's magic for the rest of their lives. It really is. I know. You had something else, Joan?
Oh, on Zoom.
Okay, yeah, it's going to be on Zoom. Yes, it will be on Zoom. Anyone else?
I was just going to say, I'm not the one to do this because I'm so tech challenged, but Jan, I think that somebody could be able to email you the link to the chat if they saved it. Is that correct? Anybody that has text
That's
skills?
good. Yes, yes, we could save it as like a document and email it to her. Yes.
Yes, so
I
if,
won't have it because I was gone for a little while, but for this part of it, for the part I can. But anyone was here the whole time. If you
okay,
send it-
I was here and I saved it. So if somebody will let me know what to do with it, I can send it to somebody. So
Okay,
yeah,
I'll
just
be in touch with you again, Karen.
okay. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. If you guys need something, contact Celestine and then she'll get in touch with me and we'll work it out.
I'm gonna put my email address in the chat. I'm a slow typist, guys, so you have to bear with me. I want to make sure I get it correct too. Yeah, there you are. So I'm going to stop recording now so we can, really chat on.